Sam Elliott never chased fame the way Hollywood expected him to. While studios were busy manufacturing leading men out of whoever had the right jawline that season, Elliott was growing out a mustache, doing construction work between auditions, and quietly deciding that he'd rather be a real actor than a household name. 40 years later, he's both, and the woman standing beside him through all of it is the same woman who barely knew he existed when they first crossed paths on a film set in 1969. That woman is Katharine Ross, and the story of how two people who didn't speak a single word to each other on a film set in 1969 ended up building one of the most enduring marriages in Hollywood history is the kind of love story that doesn't get written for the screen because nobody would believe it. Samuel Pack Elliott was born on August 9, 1944, at Sutter Memorial Hospital in Sacramento, California, to parents whose roots ran deep in Texas soil. His father, Henry Nelson Elliott, worked as a predator control specialist for the Department of the Interior, and his mother, Glenn M. Elliott, taught physical education at a high school. By the time Sam was 13, the family had relocated to Portland, Oregon, which is where he spent the bulk of his childhood, either outside or planted in front of a movie screen. By 9 years old, he'd already decided acting was the only thing he wanted to do with his life. His father had other ideas. Henry Elliott was a practical man who viewed an acting career with open skepticism, and the tension between father and son over that subject never fully resolved. Sam spent years trying to persuade his father that he could actually make something of the dream, but Henry never came around, and the two never reconciled before Henry suffered a fatal heart attack. Sam was only 18. The loss carried weight that stayed with him for years, and in a strange way, his father's death is what finally pushed him fully toward the stage. After graduating from David Douglas High School in 1962, Sam enrolled at the University of Oregon, partly out of deference to his father's wishes, studying English and psychology. He didn't finish. He transferred to Clark College in Vancouver, Washington, completed a 2-year course, and along the way landed a part in the college production of Guys and Dolls, playing Big Jewel. The Vancouver Columbian newspaper reviewed the production and specifically suggested Sam should pursue acting professionally. After graduating from Clark College in 1965, he went back to Oregon briefly, then dropped out again after his father's death, and that was the end of any lingering hesitation. Los Angeles was next. The early years in Hollywood were slow by any reasonable measure. Sam attended acting classes while doing construction work to pay rent, and his first screen credit came as an uncredited card player in the 1969 film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, sharing a set with Robert Redford and Paul Newman without exchanging a meaningful word with either of them. Katharine Ross also appeared in that film as the lead actress opposite Redford, and Sam was, in his own words, just another guy on the lot. He watched her from a distance, said nothing, and didn't think the two of them would ever interact. What followed was a decade of steady television work. Guest appearances led to recurring roles, and recurring roles led to Mission Impossible and Gunsmoke, two of the most prominent television platforms of that era. His rugged physicality and voice suited Western roles naturally, and studios recognized it quickly, though Sam himself was more interested in substance than in becoming a pinup. He actively turned down leading man roles specifically to avoid being labeled a sex symbol, understanding that the label tended to close more doors than it opened. The mustache grew, the hair grew, the career grew at its own pace. That changed when the horror film The Legacy went into production in 1978. Set against an eerie English estate, the movie brought Sam and Katharine Ross together on the same set for the first time since 1969, and this time they actually spoke to each other. Sparks followed, both on screen and off, despite the fact that Katharine was 5 years older than Sam and had already been married 4 times. Her first marriage, to college sweetheart Joel Fabiani, lasted from 1960 to 1962. Her marriage to John Marion ran from 1964 to 1967. She married Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid cinematographer Conrad Hall, a 3-time Oscar winner, in 1969, and that ended in 1974. Her fourth husband, Gano Tom Lacey, a technician she met on the set of The Stepford Wives, filed for divorce in 1979. By the time she and Sam were filming The Legacy together, Katharine was still technically married to her fourth husband, but the connection between her and Sam was real, and when her marriage ended in 1979, the relationship moved forward. The two married in 1984, and the wedding itself was followed almost immediately by one of the defining professional moments of Sam's career. During their honeymoon in Hawaii, Sam received an opportunity to audition for a role in the film Mask, the story of Rocky Dennis, a young boy living with craniodiaphyseal dysplasia, portrayed alongside Cher and Eric Stoltz. Sam's instinct was to stay on his honeymoon. Catherine pushed him to go. That decision changed everything because his performance in Mask earned him real industry recognition and established his credentials as an actor capable of handling emotionally complex material, not just Western archetypes. Their daughter Cleo Rose Elliott was born in 1985, a year after the wedding, and has since built her own career as a musician in Malibu, California. The family settled into a coastal ranch in Malibu that Sam and Catherine had purchased together back in the 1970s, long before they married. Western roles continued to define Sam's most celebrated work through the 1980s and 1990s, with the TV miniseries The Sacketts in 1979 earning him early recognition alongside Tom Selleck. His portrayal of Wade Garrett, the seasoned mentor and friend to Patrick Swayze's Dalton in the 1989 film Roadhouse, added another layer to his growing reputation. Wade Garrett was a bouncer like Dalton, but older, wiser, and operating at a different establishment, the kind of character Sam played with an ease that suggested he hadn't invented the role so much as inhabited it. By the time Tombstone arrived in the early 1990s, Sam Elliott's screen presence had become something studios actively constructed films around, rather than simply cast. His deep voice and unhurried authority proved equally effective in comedic settings, as his appearances on Parks and Recreation, Grace and Frankie, and a recurring role on The Ranch demonstrated. The animated world welcomed him too, with voice work on The Good Dinosaur, American Dad, Robot Chicken, and Family Guy, extending his reach into formats that relied entirely on what had always been his most recognizable instrument. His work in voiceovers for commercial brands runs parallel to his acting career in scope. Since 2008, Sam has voiced Smokey Bear, and his narrations have appeared in campaigns for Dodge, IBM, Union Pacific, and the American Beef Council. Ram Trucks brought him in to narrate their commercial for the Ram heavy-duty truck in 2010 during Super Bowl XLV, and he has continued voicing those advertisements ever since. The 2018 remake of A Star Is Born cast Sam as the half-brother and manager of Bradley Cooper's struggling country music artist, and his performance drew the kind of attention that Academy voters pay in full. The nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the 2019 Oscars came alongside a National Board of Review Award for Best Supporting Actor, capping a career that had produced decades of strong work without ever quite landing the award season spotlight until that moment. His role as Shay Brennan in the Paramount Plus limited series 1883, a prequel to the Yellowstone television franchise, arrived in late 2021 and ran through February 2022. Brennan guides a group of immigrants from Fort Worth, Texas, through the wild terrain of the Great Plains, carrying the weight of a man who has seen too much of the frontier to be surprised by any of it. For that performance, Sam received the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Miniseries or Television Movie in 2021, adding to a list of nominations that includes Golden Globe recognition for Tombstone and Buffalo Girls, and a Primetime Emmy nomination for Buffalo Girls and The Rough Riders. His estimated net worth stands at around $20 million, the product of 5 decades of consistent work across film, television, voice acting, and commercial narration. None of it arrived the way studios originally imagined it would when they first noticed his face and tried to point him toward conventional leading man territory. Sam Elliott, now 79 years old, once broke his right foot and required a surgical shoe during recovery, which explained the noticeable limp that had fans speculating about his health for a stretch of time. Rumors circulated about cancer, partly because his 2017 role in The Hero cast him as Lee Hayden, a Western icon battling exactly that diagnosis. Catherine played his ex-wife in the same film, which meant that 40 years after their love story began on a film set, they found themselves playing estranged former partners on screen while remaining fully devoted to each other off it. In interviews Sam has given about their marriage, the language he uses is notably plain for someone in a profession built on spectacle. He talks about love and hard work as two things that cannot exist without each other in a marriage, about how difficulty is not a reason to leave, but a condition to work through. Catherine, for her part, has spent decades earning her own standing in Hollywood, with roles in The Graduate, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Stepford Wives, and Donnie Darko, marking a career built on quality choices rather than volume. What makes their story unusual in a city famous for short-lived couplings is not the romance of how it began, but the consistency of how it continued. Two people who passed each other on a film set without a conversation in 1969, reconnected almost a decade later on a different set, fell in love despite timing and history working against them, and then spent the next 40-plus years building a life on a ranch in Malibu, where the outside world is largely kept at arm's length. Sam Elliott confirmed what fans and observers had long suspected. Catherine Ross has been the love of his life, and the 40 years they've spent married have been, by his own account, the best work he's ever done.